This is Greg Pruitt, formerly of the Cleveland Browns, and you're listening to The Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
American Revolution Wrestling and the Lake Erie Crushers present Brawl at the Ballpark. Saturday, August 1st at All Pro Freight Stadium in Avon. Come enjoy a live professional wrestling event featuring Hall of Famers Bret the Hitman Hart, Lita, The Franchise, Shane Douglas, Vader, Rhino, the FBI, and more. VIP tickets include a special early access meet and greet with the stars. Brawl at the Ballpark, August 1st at All Pro Freight Stadium. For more info or to purchase tickets, visit amrevwrestling.com now.
Hey guys, J-Rocc here from the Sports Fix, and we always talk about using our platform to try to help the world and the society we live in, and everywhere I go and everywhere we go, bullying is one of the problems in today's society. There's nothing worse than any person, big or small, strong or weak, adult or child, feeling picked on, pushed around, vulnerable, and victimized at the hands of a bully. Change comes one person at a time, and my good friends at No Such Thing as a Bully are working on skills and technique to make things better for everyone. Find out more at NoSuchThingAsABully.com.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Visit FantasyJocks.com, your fantasy sports superstore. Championship belts, rings, trophies, and more.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
Let's see if I remember how to do this here. Clickety-click, and we are on the air. Welcome in, you guys. We are live. This is the real deal here. We are back in the studio after, it's been a week here behind the scenes for sure, but we're back to wrap it up and finish the week strong here and set the stage for next week and all of that. Hey, I'll tell you what. Who knows where things are going to go next week, but we're here today. We're doing the thing, and I'm glad to have you guys with me. I'm glad to be here and doing all the Sports Fix, the usual hubbalub that we do on a Friday here. Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire, is going to join me. He's kind of on a floating timetable today, so he's going to join us in the next segment of the show here. Always a great time when JK jumps in. Matter of fact, he just texted me right before we went on the air, and we'll talk about it more later. But apparently, Jonathan Knight, the sports writer extraordinaire, will be throwing out the first pitch tomorrow for Saturday, for those of you that don't listen live, at the Akron Rubber Ducks game out there at the Canal Park. So check that out, you guys, if you get the opportunity. Jonathan Knight, the Sports Fix's own sports writer extraordinaire, tossing out the first pitch at the Rubber Ducks game tomorrow night. I still love the Rubber Ducks name. I know some people don't, but I love it. I think it's a cool name. I love the logo. Definitely better than the Arrows, that's for sure. Anyways, we'll talk to JK about that here in just a minute. A lot to get into. I'll hip you guys. I'm out of town all weekend, wrestling here again this weekend. Next weekend as well, which is why next week there's only going to be a couple of episodes of the Sports Fix, because the tail end of next week I will be heading out of town. But that's okay. We've rearranged some things. Mike Brandenberry, who's not here today, by the way, instead of being with us at the end of next week, Mike's going to be on Monday's show with us and talk about anything trade deadline related with the Indians here. We'll get in a good kind of final trade deadline conversation with him, buying, selling, all of that stuff. So we'll definitely talk to Mike. Mike Brandenberry and Dan Wismar will be here on Monday, and looking forward to that one for sure with you guys. But that's then. This is now. Looking ahead to today, we got a lot of things to get into this weekend. The Indians finally, long overdue, the Larry Doby statue. Again, I told JK this about him, and I'll say the same thing about this. I am in Pennsylvania all weekend wrestling. I'm in Pittsburgh tomorrow. I'm in Erie on Sunday, and it's a shame because I'd have went to both of those. I'm out of town. I'm not even going to get to watch Jessica Ive fight live. I'm going to have to DVR it and watch that thing later. So any of that fun stuff that you guys are doing this weekend, I'll be out doing my thing as well, and I wish I could be there with you. I wish I could be out in Akron with JK throwing out the first pitch. I definitely wish that I could be there for the unveiling of the Larry Doby statue, because I've been one of those guys in the media That's kind of been one of my things that I laid on for years when it came to that, as far as who should the Indians honor, the statues, Jim Thome, all those different conversations. I was always one of the cats front and center. Larry Doby, then we can start the rest of this conversation as a baseball player. But obviously, and there's a great piece, and we're going to talk more about this when Jonathan Knight joins us too, a great piece by Terry Pluto about Larry Doby and what he overcame, being every bit, if not more, a pioneer racially into baseball as Jackie Robinson, and a long overdue, and I cannot wait to see that happen. And as well, the Indians giving out the miniature replica Larry Doby statues, much like they did. I've got the Bob Feller one sitting over here by 10 feet to my left over here, but good times there, and the Indians, wish they were given better time. Yesterday was an ugly one. Matter of fact, Mike texted me this morning. He goes, it's better to go Monday. I'm not even trying to talk about that debacle last night. I said, I'm with you, bro. I am with you. And the up and down, I was hoping that they'd be warm here this week. Seemed like it may be coming out of the break, and then it continues to be up and down. It feels like that's going to be the story of the season. Last night, I haven't even got into the introduction of the show, so I don't want to go too deep into this, but last night, if you guys were listening on the radio broadcast to Tom Hamilton, he was talking about that White Sox team and the year. It was in the 60s, but the year is slipping my head. But that White Sox team that had a 2.75 team ERA, just had this amazing 2.75 team ERA, and they lost nearly 100 games because they didn't have obviously the offense here, and he was making a comparison to the Indians pitching and the situation they're in. But can you imagine that, having a 2.7 ERA and losing what was it, 96 games or whatever it was? That's unheard of in today's. I'm telling you, you do that. Hammy said, well, you go to the World Series, you do that, you're going to set some records for game wins, because good luck in today's era. And obviously that's much harder, but a good comparison, because the Indians are going to end up at the pace they're going. And remember, last year, 50-50, baby. That was the Kansas City Royals before they really went on a tear and ran themselves right on into the World Series. There is still a lot of opportunity for the Indians, but they've shown no reason to not believe that every time they win a couple, they're going to slip right back down. That is, again, the frustrating part, is we're all watching very good parts of the Indians be thrown away by the parts that are not working well. And man, I can't wait to get JK on. I mean, there's rumors, phone calls made about Carrasco. I would hope that they ended with, if you're not sending us your entire farm system and a basket of chocolates, let's just not even start this conversation. So we'll get into all of that with JK. But the Indians just making it easy for the front office not to do anything is what they're doing. They're making it easy for the front office to sit back and not make any move. And again, overrated deadline deals anyway. Completely overrated, as we've talked about. Very rarely do they move the needle. And so what's one going to do? Perhaps spark up the lineup a little bit. But it's interesting to talk about. Bruce just threw in the chat room, top 3 prospects. That's just to get the conversation off the floor. That's just to get the conversation going. You're talking about a cat who is at the top of his game, getting better, and under relatively reasonable team control for quite some time, financially feasible. The finances alone of Carrasco's contract make him worth a giant package, let alone the talent of Carrasco. You put those two together, and yeah, there's the risk that comes with the same risk that the Indians took making that long-term deal. But man, to me, the most premium, that's it. Him and Kluber. Carrasco, because of the age, because of the size of the contract, and how much of a steal that could potentially be in the future, and the talent that exists there, man. That would need to be one of the most blockbuster packages of all time for me to entertain that. We'll see what JK thinks about that here in a little bit, but Trade deadline coming up all around the place. We're going to get into that. Cavaliers doing their things as well. Let's do the thing. Welcome in, you guys. I haven't even kicked this thing off yet. See, I'm a little rusty, a little bit out of the swerve. Let's do it. Welcome into the Sports Fix, guys. I am your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone, J-Rocc, Jerry Myers. Call me any of the above, the conductor of the madness, all those little nicknames you've bestowed upon me here. Or, I don't know, maybe I bestowed them upon me. It's heck to have you guys here each and every day when we do this thing live across the Sports Fix radio network, listening live. Maybe you're on TuneIn's radio app worldwide, or enjoying the show on Spreaker, on Mixler, their respective digital and mobile apps. Welcome in all of you listening to the show live as well. Everybody who's right there on our home base, thesportsfix.net, your one-stop shop for all things Cleveland sports, and all of that. You know the goodness that is. What you doing, man? Bookmark it today, thesportsfix.net. Welcome in as well the thousands and thousands of you guys that listen to this show on digital delay 24 hours a day. Whether you're enjoying the show, time zones everywhere around this globe, or just internet radio provider, on iTunes, on Stitcher Radio, CarPlay, all of the places that you guys download it, feed it, subscribe it, do the thing, get your fix. Thank you so much for doing just that. Gonna crack the phones here in a moment. Haven't been on all week, so we'll definitely do that. We've got some time to kill here until Jonathan Knight joins us. I'd love to hear from you. 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. The number to call. Social media always blowing up. Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Twitter @TheSportsFixCLE. Email us, TheSportsFix@AOL.com. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us @TheSportsFixCLE. Email us, TheSportsFix@AOL.com. Really quick, before we do any of the stuff here that I've got that I want to get into here and get rolling with the show, I was doing my show prep here this morning and all of that, and I'll tell you what, I saw locally all these different, through the local newspaper, all these different live look-ins at high school media days, because high school football training camps are getting ready to get rocking and rolling around the area. And there's nothing to belabor too much about this point, but I think we've talked about this before when it comes to the signing days and the big media frenzies that become that circled around these kids' high school days and where they're going to go to college, and making decisions that a lot of times they end up changing their mind on. And anyways, but they make the full scale production, and we've talked before about, hey, where do you draw the line? What's not to sound like that commercial where a kid can be a kid, but when a kid can be a kid, you know what I mean? And now I just saw this, and apparently it's a thing. I did not even really get hip to the fact that I know pro media days, I'm at all of them, college media, all of that makes sense. But man, all of these high schools rolling out media days, and it's taken another step, another level towards, being, I don't know. I don't even know how to say what I want to say, because I get it at one point, and you want to get media for hey, look, these schools live and die on, some of them anyway. Some of them are private schools, but the public schools definitely funding. And so the more awareness and knowledge that you've got, yeah. But I was just amazed seeing all of these schools, not every school, but many of the big ones now. That's kind of just become part of the par for the course for how you go about doing your thing. And it's the continuation of growing them up too early, I guess, of the whole world kind of putting themselves on fast forward. I always looked at high school sports, even in a place as crazy as like Texas, or where they live and die by their Friday night lights and all of that. There's still, it becomes a line where it's high school, and it's, I don't know. I could be romanticizing and fantasizing of a different bygone era, but it just growing them up too quick and just continuing to make much more business-like things out of But I mean, hey, that's the world. But I was just, again, looking around. I didn't really should have, really it wasn't until this past year that I started dialing back into the high school markets anyway, because of doing the play-by-play and everything. So, again, this is probably something that's been building for the last quite some time, but I've just kind of had my eyes open to it. And I saw one, and then I saw like 20 live look-ins at 22 different media days. And I said, damn, man, they're going to that next level with the high school sports. And it's just again, make the businessification, I think I just created a word there, but of high school sports continues. Nothing to really like rant and rave on a soapbox about, but I was just kind of surprised by that. And hey, it's all about, I'm telling you, man, I will say this, and I cannot wait to get back into it again this year. It's so refreshing, the whole high school football. I mean, even beyond all this, you get around those kids on the field, and I've talked to some of them right before the game, and you get them with the helmet off, right? Because they all look like little soldiers playing football, little robots football players, and all of that. And you talk to them, you get the helmet off, all of a sudden you realize that you're talking to a child there for most, or a young man, a young adult, whatever. But in some cases you realize just, hey, man. And again, it's something to talk about at another time, absolutely. But I was just shocked at the live look-ins at all of these media days and seeing just another step of the advancedification of today's youth, you guys. I wasn't hip to that. So there we go. It's out there and rolling around. And that means we're just weeks away from high school football, baby. High school football leads to college football, leads to professional football. We're just a few weeks away from all of them getting going. Hey, real quick, I see the phone's ringing, and I'm going to go to them here right now. Give me a moment here to indulge me, if you will. I'm out of town this weekend, doing the wrestling thing again this weekend. Pittsburgh and Erie, doing a Pennsylvania. Yeah, I know. Doing the land of the enemy there, doing a double shot this weekend. I'll be in Pittsburgh at the Altar Bar, directly downtown Pittsburgh on Saturday evening. That should be a lot of fun. And I will be in Erie, Pennsylvania on Sunday. Looking forward to that as well. Should be a lot of fun. Come on out and check me out if you get a chance. I'll be at Chick-fil-A's by the Bay, 3 p.m. Saturday or Sunday afternoon, and at the Altar Bar in downtown Pittsburgh on Saturday evening. Can't wait to see some of you guys there. And, of course, big ones next weekend in Chicago, here in Avon, and in Dayton. I'll talk to you guys some more about that here next week. I've got a lot more that I wanted to get into. I've got callers on the phone lines. I've got the sports writer extraordinaire earlier than usual, freeing himself up here to be able to do the show. So I think I'm going to have to rearrange some things real quickly. If you're on hold, do me a favor. Call me back after Jonathan Knight joins us here. I apologize, but for those of you that are on hold, do me a favor and call me back when Jonathan Knight leaves us on the show, because I'm going to go ahead and punch JK to be available this early. I am all about it. We're going to rock and roll and pick up talking some Larry Doby, talking some Cavaliers here. Braxton Miller, I haven't even dove into it. Braxton Miller, big news, as he is going to not be the quarterback. He's going to do the whole H-back wide receiver thing, which we kind of had thought and heard things about coming in. Let's talk about all of that and more, and I promise to get to your phone calls. The sports writer extraordinaire, Jonathan Knight, joining us next on the hotline. We'll talk Cavs, Indians, Buckeyes, and more. JK in the house coming up next after the news. We'll get it rolling. Don't go anywhere. Plenty of sports fix still to come, baby.
Well, they say it's kind of frightening how this younger generation swings. It's more than just some new sensation. Well, the kid is into losing sleep, and he don't come home for half a week. It's more than just an aggravation. And the Greedo will ride.
Get your fix.
'Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got to do.
It's the Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight in there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fight. Deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
American Revolution Wrestling presents Arena Warfare. Sunday, August 2nd at the Hara Arena in Dayton. Come enjoy a live professional wrestling event featuring appearances by Hall of Famers Bret, the Hitman Hart, and Lita. In-ring action featuring the Franchise, Shane Douglas, Vader, Rhino, the FBI, and more. Tickets starting at $15 with VIP tickets including a special early access meet and greet with the star. Arena Warfare. August 2nd at the Hara Arena. For more info to purchase tickets, visit AMREVWrestling.com.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, bumper car, swing set, bowling, pillow fight, cut loose, stay tight. Whew. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com. Sports Fix listeners, do you tweet? So do we. So tweet with us 24/7 at the Sports Fix CLE. Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picozzi. They lost their starting quarterback in the preseason and still won the national championship. Ohio State coach Urban Meyer tells the Columbus Dispatch that he has not yet made a final decision to switch Braxton Miller to wide receiver. Miller told Sports Illustrated he's changing positions. ESPN college football insider Joe Chad thinks the move makes sense.
This gives head coach Urban Meyer a tremendous versatile weapon, a guy who can go play receiver, who can go play H-back, who can get involved on special teams. It allows quarterback competition to be narrowed.
A competition between J.T. Barrett and Cardell Jones. A Class C misdemeanor theft charge will be dismissed from the record of Cowboys running back Joseph Randle if he stays out of trouble for the next 180 days. He was arrested last October for stealing a bottle of cologne and a pack of underwear. With shortstop Jordy Mercer and third baseman Josh Harrison on the disabled list, the Pirates have acquired third baseman Aramis Ramirez from the Milwaukee Brewers for a minor league pitcher. Ramirez spent the first 5.5 years of his career in Pittsburgh. Indians pitcher Nick Hagedorn underwent surgery yesterday in his left elbow. He's expected to be sidelined for 6 to 9 months.
The men's store at JCPenney. Styles that are sure to fit every guy's look and budget, like Stafford, J. Farrar, and Van Heusen. All available at JCPenney.
Hey everybody, this is Jerry the King Lawler from WWE, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Wow, I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live, where we take the format sheet and do this. We rip it up and we throw it out the window. We're going to start from scratch here. My man, Jonathan Knight, the sports writer extraordinaire. Hey, some days you're on a floating schedule, and when the schedule floats your way, you jump on it and you start floating down the river. So, my man, I'm feeling good, like James Brown, because Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire, on the hotline, getting ready to join me. Hey, in the news break, they kind of touched right on one of the things I wanted to get into. We're going to talk a little Braxton Miller here. We'll talk a little Larry Doby, long overdue. Who knows, maybe a little tribe trade deadline talk and more. Jonathan Knight's going to join us. I told you guys where he's going to be tomorrow night. We'll talk about that too. You guys can join me on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfix at AOL.com. I saw the phones earlier. Give me a call. Next segment, I'm going to open them back up for you guys, I promise. But as I said, that format sheet kind of just got in your way. I'm going to go to the phone lines right now. My man, JK, the sports writer extraordinaire, Jonathan Knight. How are you doing this afternoon, my friend?
Jerry, doing very well. Doing very well indeed. In fact, I like the tie-in between whipping up the format and starting over, fitting right in with the start of Browns training camp, because that's what they do every season. They rip up the plan and start all over again.
Really? We got to go there, man, to start? I wasn't
I'm
even,
here
to be
all
honest
week,
with you.
try the veal. Be sure to
be honest with you, we weren't even going to talk about the Browns today, man.
Okay. That's good. Let's move on.
I'm just saying, we got a week till training camp. We've got time to go on that one. But actually, we can start anywhere you want, man. How's things going, by the way? You're heading up this way. I mentioned it earlier in the show. I said before the show, we're getting ready to go on the air. I get a text from JK. He's like, hey, by the way, I'll be throwing out the first pitch at the Rubber Ducks game tomorrow night, man.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
How about that? How hard up are those guys?
Is it Major League night at Rubber Duck Stadium? Is
it
that
is.
what it is?
Well, it is. They're doing a Major League thing. They're giving away a Pedro Serrano bobblehead tomorrow night.
Oh, sweet.
Game, which is, that makes it the cultural hub of the Midwest when you do stuff like that. So, yeah.
I really wish I
I'll
could
be
go.
up there doing books or signing books, talking to people, and throwing out the first pitch.
Now, hold on. If you got the stroke at throwing out the first pitch, then I got to think you can get an extra bobblehead for your boy, right? Like, I mean, you put one in the bag.
You would think, right? I see if I can trade that in.
Come on, you're throwing out the first pitch. You should get the VIP treatment here, man. But that's pretty cool. That is a cool thing, man. And I'm mad this weekend between that and Larry Doby. I can't get to see either one of them because I'm out of town wrestling all weekend in Pennsylvania, and those are both two, if you're a baseball fans, man, places to be Saturday night.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, I remember realizing that in, I think it was February. I wrote a column for Good Try Win last night about going to all the promotional events that the Indians and all their minor league affiliates are doing all year, and I realized that, probably the two best that they're doing all year are on the same night. The Rubber Ducks are doing the Serrano, and the Tribe is doing the Larry Doby. And and I think my conclusion was, well, that's what I-77 is for. Why not hit go? You could do that.
Did you see the Harry Doyle was over the weekend? I believe I saw some pictures of the Harry Doyle bobblehead in the box being tweeted out. So I think that one was this past week or whatever.
That was on Tuesday. Yeah, the Brewers had their Major League night on Tuesday, which was great and a lot of fun. And they gave the book away there as well, and it seemed to be a real hit. That bobblehead, that might, of all of the bobbleheads, not just in Milwaukee and the Indians, but of all of the bobbleheads that were given away by big league teams and minor league teams this year, that might have topped the list in terms of most anticipated. There were a lot of excited people to get a Harry Doyle talking bobblehead, nonetheless. You press the button, it says 3 lines. So, yeah.
One of the coolest ones that I've ever seen, for sure, man. And, hey, since we're talking about trophies and bobbleheads and statues, let's just start there. As I mentioned, 10 feet to my left here is the Bob Feller statue that they gave out the day they put that one up, and this weekend fans will again receive a small commemorative version of a big statue, and this is the one. I think you and I have talked about it at times over the years. I mentioned at the beginning of the show that this, for years, I don't know, I'm gonna have to start finding my next soapbox to stand on, because they have finally knocked this one down, because it was, why are we talking about Jim Thome? Why are we talking about anybody before Larry Doby? And I don't know if you read Terry Pluto's piece, but he really, for people that maybe, or for younger fans that aren't familiar, did a great piece, Terry did, about the legacy of Larry Doby and why, in many ways, he is as important, or maybe it was even harder for him than it was for Jackie Robinson at the time.
Yes, I I was going to bring that up. Terry Pluto just posted this morning a fantastic column, some of which is drawn from his great book, Our Tribe, that came out about 15 years ago. A fantastic book and a great column that he had today, perfect timing, that really it outlines exactly what you said, that pointing out that Larry Doby went everything that Jackie Robinson went through, Larry Doby went through, and then some. I mean, Jackie Robinson obviously was a trailblazer and deserves all the credit and history that has been thrust upon him. Absolutely. Don't want to take anything away from him. But at the same time, the two big things that were different between Jackie Robinson and Larry Doby, and Terry talks about this a little bit in the column, is, first of all, that Jackie was really very gradually introduced into his situation. He played the entire season before, 1946, in Montreal, the Dodgers AAA affiliate. So everyone kind of saw it was coming. He could kind of work his way into it in a not hostile environment. Canada has always been more progressive in this regard. Yeah. So he didn't have to face the adversity that he would when he got to America and got to the big leagues the following year. So he could kind of ease into it and prove to everyone that he can play. And whereas Larry Doby was it was hours. It was basically like, all right, we got this guy, and here he is. And he just arrived. He just arrived. There was no preparation for Larry Doby. There was no preparation for his teammates or Boudreaux, the manager. I mean, it was just, here he is, go with it. And he did not succeed right away. That's another thing that people don't understand. That Jackie Robinson, of course, because I think he had been so well prepared, and he was a fantastic player. At 47, led the Dodgers to the World Series. A great instant success story. Larry Doby thrust into this situation in the middle of the 1947 season. Early environment, people, there's all this hullabaloo, and then Jackie Robinson gets up there and he stinks. What then? He was always good enough to justify his being there, but what if that didn't happen? And that's basically what happened with Larry Doby. And so that first year, that second half of that first year was, I cannot imagine how difficult that was for him to go through that experience. Of course, by the next year, 1948, the Indians go on and win the World Series. He was a huge, huge player, a huge part of that story, and had a fantastic year and went on to have a great career. The other thing that I think that does get Jackie Robinson, of course, in Brooklyn, all of these things, but Brooklyn's obviously, and still is today, very, shall we say, liberal or progressive, open-minded, however you want to frame it. Whereas Cleveland leans more that way, but not as much. And of course, you don't have the media that was really celebrating it. It was just very, very different. So even Larry Doby, even after the novelty of Larry Doby being this sort of very unique person, the first black player, once that kind of wore off, he still really was not treated well by the media for his stay in Cleveland, and he was portrayed as having a bad attitude, and he wouldn't try very hard, and that went on for years, and where that did not necessarily go on with Jackie Robinson, at least in Brooklyn. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of differences that you can see between these two guys, and Larry Doby, it's unfortunate that he's really an afterthought, really a footnote to the Jackie Robinson situation, and it's nice to see that at least in Cleveland he is getting his moment. He's getting this weekend. He's getting a statue put outside that hopefully that story will be told and more people will understand exactly what he went through and how important his story is.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, it took a long time to get there. That was the thing, is that, the baseball part of it aside, just the background of his actual story and all the things that you just laid out, I thought that made it a no-brainer, even if you were just doing, your token public relations stuff that some of these franchises like to do. That would definitely be front and center on the list of things, and some good publicity when you put them front and center side of it. I know they had the street named after him all that time, and to the Indians, that was also a very high honor. But this is cool, and again, there's a difference between a street name, because you hit on it at the end of educating, or maybe newer fans, younger fans, learning things they didn't know, and there's a difference there, and then perhaps that grabs, oh man, I had no idea. I didn't know that very easily he could have been before Jackie Robinson. I didn't even, let alone the rest of the story. Like you said, one set of circumstances, even if the players on the team didn't necessarily, and that wasn't the case for everyone with Robinson, but it was with some, just like with Larry Doby. You still had the full support. It's like what you mentioned the Browns at the beginning, switching everything. At least whoever comes in has the full support of management, so it doesn't really matter who likes it on the field. Management's going to do it, and they're going to groom it right, and they're going to set it up, and so they set everything up the right way. Here, you got a manager that doesn't even know what this guy's doing here. He doesn't play any position because they've got people in the positions that he plays. So, I mean, he's literally a man with no country in every circumstances. He doesn't even have a position to call his own. So it really was, in many ways, as you said, a much tougher journey for Larry Doby that so many less people know about. So maybe walking past that statue leads to more people finding out about that and being educated to exactly what he went through.
Yeah, you would hope so. And I think you're right, too. You're onto something when you say the difference between a statue and, say, a street name. I think if you look at a lot of younger fans today or younger fans even 20 years ago when Jacobs Field opened, I think the Bob Feller statue is maybe their go-to, their first exposure to Bob Feller. Like, who the heck would know a 9-year-old kid going to his first Indians game has no idea who Bob Feller is, but whoa, look at that statue. That's pretty cool. And just that instant introduction, that instant appreciation for this person was important. This person is an influential person in team history, in baseball history. It does a lot more than a street name does. So I think this will pay off, that Larry Doby will get some more exposure, and he will at least have more closer to. I think I think that ship has sailed. I don't think he's ever going to get the attribution and the attention that he really did deserve and does deserve. But this is absolutely a step in the right direction, and hats off to the Indians for doing it. I think you're right. It does feel a little belated that maybe this should have been there at the beginning when Jacobs Field opened, but nevertheless, it's better late than never, and tribute to the Indians for stepping up and doing the right thing.
For sure. And one last thing on that I noticed, I had not really known this aspect of it, and Terry kind of alluded to it. The Indians hired Speaker to come in and teach Larry Doby how to play center field when they said, okay, he can't play short, he can't play second, but we can move him out here to the outfield. But Terry had the line in there, that there had been rumblings throughout baseball that at one point in his life, Speaker was part of the KKK. And what an amazing, who knows if there's validation to that or not, but obviously if it's been said enough, it's at least been discussed before. What a dynamic that would be there on top of the powder keg of integrating baseball in general.
Oh, sure, yeah, and there's a great story that actually in Summer Shadows, in my Summer Shadows book, there's a great story about his actual debut in Major League Baseball. That he was his first at bat. He was a pinch hitter. And you just picture that moment, and when you look at that moment of, imagine you're a typical baseball player, a white baseball player, being called back and being pinch hit by a black baseball player, and what that was like for that original player, and not to feel sorry for that player, but just in the magnitude of the moment, and think how much hostility that moment could bring. So lots of stories like that, and again, Larry Doby's arrival was not a celebration the way Jackie Robinson's was, and I think that story epitomizes that.
Man, you just took the conversation another way, man. You mentioned Summer of Shadows. I got to jump in there real quick, man. Amazing book. I finished it a couple of weeks ago when you brought it up here. I mean, I tore through that thing. You did an amazing job with that book, and I loved it. Matter of fact, you got me more interested in Sam Shepard, because I've known a lot of the details of that Indians team. Like, obviously, that's one of the big ones that we look at, and I learned some things there, but even more about the Sam Shepard murder. I found myself going, all right, I get it. The Indians went to the World Series. What else happened here when you switch back over to Bay Village? But it was a great read. You did an excellent job with that, man.
Oh, well, thank you. I greatly appreciate that. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to do. I loved doing that, telling that story, and I think the motivation was exactly what you just said. 4 Indians are quite fat that even today are still lasting. That occurred at the same time, at the same place. Well, let's combine these and tell a story here. So, yeah, that was a lot of fun to do. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That was truly a really wonderful experience.
Plus, I love you do this in many of your books, but the way you tie the multiple things in together. You're telling the story of the 54 season and the story of the Sam Shepard developments, and then you're throwing in the interludes going back to the World Series and then back into the two stories. I in general, the way you write, I love the way you're able to tie multiple separate things in together. But that was great. Plus, you knew all about Sam Shepard being a pro wrestler, which not everybody knows about, man.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
Yeah,
the Jerry angle there. Yeah,
that's right.
Now you mention it, some of those scenes at the beginning and the end, where especially toward the end of his life, when he's wrestling in smaller venues and he's traveling the state and doing like, wow, yeah, that's right. He was the killer.
And you know what?
Ironic.
That's no joke. Yeah. Don't think about WWE like what you see today. We're talking about the 60s when the curtain was not off that pro wrestling was entertainment. It was still believed, or at least the act was up that what you were seeing was a legitimate contest. So, like, when they thought that this guy was a freed killer, I mean, he was fighting for his life to get out of buildings. Yeah. I've heard stories from old-time guys that were around. I mean, he had heat. He was hot because people thought this was this murderer that was out there. And here's a crazy story that wrestling fans today may not know, but Mick Foley, who's one of the biggest, wrestling stars in the world and an author and all of that stuff, the finishing maneuver that he ended up using, he went and dug through the archives and he pulled it out. It was what Sam Shepard used. It was the mandible claw. It was the two fingers underneath the tongue onto the pressure point. He was looking for something different that nobody did, and he went and heard the story of Sam Shepard, so he started using that maneuver. But that was actually a legitimate medical thing that was turned into a pro wrestling maneuver. But yeah, a lot of people don't even know that, but he ended up...
No, I didn't. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Interesting tie-ins, but again, JK didn't pay for that. We didn't plan on that, but I'm telling you now, go pick up Summer of Shadows because it's worth it, you guys, most definitely. Speaking of worth it, hey, while we're talking about the Indians, let's switch to today. They're putting up the Larry Doby statue. I mean, the Indians, I mentioned it a little bit at the beginning of the show. I understand how much time is left in this season, and I understand how good the pitching of the Indians is. But, I mean, again, every time you see a couple of games, like at the beginning coming out of the All-Star break here, you go, okay, they win 3 out of 4 or whatever, they get rolling, and then, and then you have nights like you pitched very well. But as long as they continue to win 3 and lose 3, or win 4 and lose 3, and then win 3 and lose 4, they're going to be, I mentioned it at the beginning. Tom Hamilton last night was bringing up the story of I think it was the 67 White Sox, but it was a late 60s White Sox team that had a 2.75 team ERA and lost 100 games on the season. Like, and he was kind of equating that to what we're looking at here with the Indians, because they're on the verge of being one of the best pitched 500 teams, if they're lucky, in baseball history. So with the trade deadline coming up, and I don't know, have you heard some of these Carrasco rumblings that have come out that Toronto has called? And I'm sure every team that's interested has called the Indians about their pitching. But to me, you want to talk about Carlos Carrasco? I want all 3 teams in your farm system, and then we can start the conversation. I mean, seriously, like, come on now, man. This is a cat who is young, potential, proof in the pudding now, and signed ridiculously cheap a couple of years from now.
Yeah, and I think Trevor Bauer, I think, is a name that you've heard that's very similar a type of selling point.
See, I would trade Bauer. I can't lie, man. I may think about trading Trevor Bauer, man.
Yeah, and that's here we are again. I feel like every year we do this. That there's usually a pitcher that the Indians have who's decent and young, and you've got him locked down, and you think, well, okay, we have all these other needs, and we do have other pitching. What do we give? Are we willing to give him up? What are we willing to give him up for? So, this is not an unfamiliar place. But, at the same time, I don't know that if the Indians get this deal that they can't refuse, of course, you got to go with it. But I don't know that they're going to get that. And even if they do, at best, you might get a prospect or two, and maybe you'll get a variable good hitter that can step in right now to the lineup and help. But is that really going to make a difference this year? No, I don't think so. And it probably won't make up for the fact that you've just given away 20% of your starting rotation. So,
but JK,
I just don't know.
Here's the thing, even if you're willing to entertain a trade for one of your top pitchers, Bauer, Carrasco, whatever, and bring in a little bit of a haul, it almost feels to me like the Indians have, and I know you saw Mike's piece on the payroll flexibility or lack of over the next couple of seasons.
Great piece, by the way.
And yeah, absolutely. And him and I have kind of been talking about that leading up to this for what to look at for the next year or two as well. And my problem with it is I would be okay if it was a move that you because I understand that sometimes teams have to fit and you've got a position of depth, and to me, like the Indians, they build. So, being able to do that, grabbing a Zach Walters for Asdrubal Cabrera at the trade deadline, at least by taking on a little salary, the Indians brought in some pieces that will potentially contribute over the next couple of seasons, and I don't mind that, but at the same time, it's such a shame because of the pitching, and look at those in his bin. Last night he came up, and of course, that's the way it is. When a guy's having the worst season ever, he'll have a good game when you lose. You know what I mean? Then he goes up and he gets a couple of hits and drives a run in, and it's like, hey, I had a good game. Like, well, too late, man. But anyways, I swear, he came up, and his line pops up on the screen. It was like 18 RBIs. But I swear I remember a couple of weeks ago, his line wasn't much different. I looked over at my son. At that time, I think it was 220-something with no homers and 13 RBIs or something. I'm like, man, we're now 100 games into the season, and this is getting worse and worse and worse. And, at some point, I don't care if you're paying them. Mike and I keep arguing about when the Indians reach this point. You're paying them no matter what. Stop making us watch them play and stop making your team worse. If you got to pay them and play 23 players then, because that's what you're doing anyway. But stop putting these guys on, and obviously Swisher's not playing, but stop putting Bourne out on the field. And it looked like it was moving that way, and then I don't know. Terry Francona's got that soft spot for veterans, and I like that to a point. And the minute Bourne, just when he was out, he got hot for a week. He had a good 10 days or something like that, and found himself working his way kind of into some more playing time. But I mean, it really felt like he was very close to being completely pulled from the lineup there. And I mean, at some point you've got to. Mike and I go back and forth on this all the time. When do the Indians finally do it? This off season or whatever? Do they finally say, okay, fine, we'll pay you not to play on our team because we're going to be paying you anyway, no matter what?
Yeah, at what point does Michael Bourne become a head coach of the Browns, where it's just like, okay, we've got about 4 or 5 of these guys, we're just paying you not to coach our team, because that's the only way this is going to go. I just cannot see. You're absolutely right, because and especially if they do make any kind of trade, even a minor one at the deadline here, and pick up a few maybe borderline prospect outfielders or infielders, whatever it may be. And we're talking about this now that Swisher is in rehab and could be back in a few weeks. When he comes back, then what do you do? Like, where do you put him? I mean, there aren't too many places you can put Swisher. But more to the point, it's like, well, okay, there are just too many guys who are better than Bourne who need to be out there. I mean, my gosh, you can't tell me you feel better with Bourne in the lineup than Ryan Rayburn or David Murphy. I mean, you have to put those guys in there over Bourne. And if Brantley needs to play center, so be it. That's every day. That's fine. That's just how it has to be. So my guess is that they're going to keep the status quo with at least with Bourne. Who knows what's going to happen with Swisher? But they're going to keep things going the way they are with Bourne through the end of the year, and then really make some hard decisions with both of them going into next year. But I think you're right. I think they're at a point where it's like they have to cut bait, and they have to realize that they're going to have to cut bait. It's going to be painful, and it's going to hurt to pay somebody who's not helping you in any way. But you've got to do it. I mean, this is going to lead to a revolt. It's hard enough to get people excited about this team and to watch this team, but you start trotting guys out there just to play out their contracts when you have better guys sitting on the bench. There is nothing that's going to make fans angrier faster than that.
And, I mean, look at last night. Again, we keep talking about how even when they do get something going, then they come back home and the fans show up a little bit, and then they do. I mean, what a way to start this homestand. What a miserable way when you're thinking, okay, maybe these guys are coming out of the break and they're going to get to 500. What a miserable.
they are fan base. Like
yes,
they have got they've got a billboard or a chalkboard, and they've got a little pointer, and they're going step by step in how to irritate your fan base. And this is how you do it. It's just still stunning to me. This team is never, even in the 90 plus loss years, was better at home than they are now.
Yes.
I cannot understand why this team is so dreadful at Progressive Field.
What?
On the road.
Have you talked to Dan Wismar? Have you talked to your boy Dan Wismar? Because he has got an interesting theory, and it's not even a conscious one. It's a subconscious level, and it is that the attendance at Progressive Field over the last however many seasons is subconsciously perhaps finally taking its toll on these players who have played in these empty buildings without the emotion and the fan support and the noise that comes with a decent crowd at your stadium. And perhaps after, several years of that for many of these guys, whether it's even on a subconscious level or not, they just don't get up as much playing at Progressive Field as they do on the road. Because if these guys were just 500 at home, they'd be in much better shape right now on the season. If they were just playing 500 at home, they'd be above 500 on the year. They'd be a couple of games closer in the division. They'd be right there in the edge of the wild card. And so I don't know what you think of that. But Dan's just been throwing that out there, and I'm like, man, it's almost something to consider, because it's hard to explain how they can lose 90-some games and be above 500 at home during that season, and here they can't wait to get on the road and play better.
That's an intriguing theory. I had not heard that, but my first inclination is to buy into that, because I think, and baseball, that's a little tricky, because baseball home field advantage is less important than I think in any other sport. It's never a huge deal. We play it up like it is, but it really isn't that, at least as big as in other sports. But I think if you buy into, and most people do in Cleveland, if you look at that 90s era after Jacobs Field opened and the Indians were either dominant or at least in contention in the playoff team all those years, they were really dominant at home. And I think you have to look at, they're playing in front of sellout crowds every night, and they're jacked up, and they're playing a little better, and that gets them to be a better team. If you believe that, then by contrast, you have to then believe that a couple of years and even just over the course of a single season, seeing these miserable, unenthusiastic crowds out there, that's going to affect their play the other way. So I think the two go together. It's like you can't believe in God without believing in the devil. You got to believe in one. You got to believe in both. So yeah, I buy into that.
Like, think about it. And I'm not saying that these players are miserable every time they come to Progressive Field. They're guys getting paid millions of dollars to play baseball. But any of you who have had a job where you may not realize, I'm not talking about the job where you're just miserable every day and you know it, but many people have had that time where they've worked somewhere for a long time and they've left, and all of a sudden people keep mentioning to them, boy, man, you're just in a better mood, or boy, you're just a different person because you got that it's like you didn't even realize that place was making you miserable or making you a grouchy person or you whatever. And I'm telling you, that's what I'm thinking about with what Dan was saying. And he's like, I can't prove it. And I said, boy, there's something to that maybe psychologically it's just they don't get as up for going and playing in front of 5,000 fans on a Wednesday night or whatever,
Yeah, and I think, and while that's a great point, I think an Indians fan would hear that and instantly get defensive, and I understand that. And it's not at all to blame fans. It's not the fans' responsibility to players play well. But that's the reality. I mean, it's not the typical fan would hear that and say, well, wait a minute, they're pros. They should play well regardless of how big the crowd is. And you're right, of course, but it does affect it. But at the same time, it goes back to what we've talked about ever since the Indians have started having these massive attendance problems. It's a chicken and egg argument. Did people stop coming out to watch the team because the team was terrible, or is the team terrible because they have less interest and less money and less revenue, all of those things? Which came first, I don't know. There's really no answer to that. So, but this is an extension of that, and I don't know what the solution is. I mean, to some point, you just need a season like 2013 again, but over the course of an entire season. You need a couple of them, honestly. I mean, you've got to string something together, because now that's sort of this legacy of the Dolan era is you've got a couple nice teams, but you've never been able to string back-to-back really nice seasons together, and this is, again, an extension of that. We're going to almost certainly have a losing season this year unless they really catch fire here in the last 60 games or so. So, yeah, I don't know what the solution is, and particularly with Bourne and Swisher, with those contracts, I don't see them making any widespread changes in the offseason that's going to make next year's team much different than this one.
Yep. And you know what? For those of you that are looking at the trade deadline, and hey, don't think that I would love for the Indians to make a trade or two. I'm not saying you got to go trade for Barry Bonds in his prime, but I would be fine with that. I don't expect them to do it, but if come next Thursday or something, the Indians make 2 trades and just bolster the lineup, that's great. Let's talk about that. But one of the things that's going to get in the way of that, besides the Indians, is the marketplace. If you notice, everybody's dangling great pitching. I mean, you saw Samardzija last night, and all the talk about is he making his last start, and Greinke's going out here this weekend to get out there before the start. Everybody's getting their guys out there, but all the talk that yesterday, Kazmir was traded. By the way, former Indian Scotty Kazmir. Right. How about Houston? Because I mentioned to Dan the other day that I thought Houston was going to fold in the second half just because they have not been through a full season like this before, and I thought that they may run out, it's kind of an adrenaline first half, but hey, they're looking to fight that. They picked up Scotty Kazmir from Oakland, and Pittsburgh doing the same thing. They went and got, I don't know how much Aramis Ramirez has, but they went and picked him up, going back where he started. Everybody seems to want to go home lately. But anyways, I don't know what bats are out there for the Indians to necessarily get. I know everybody hates Cleveland. There was a nice piece with a bunch of guys, but I mean, Mike and I went through that whole list and could find literally maybe 2 guys that would even be okay. We'll take them, but nothing that's going to change the world right now. Now, there are a few things that could change the salary in the next year or two and allow you to do some other moves, but at the same time, in 2 years, you theoretically got Bradley Zimmer coming up, so you've got a cost-effective center fielder. So, I mean, the market for who you can get, how long their contract is, and who's even available, I don't know what all the Indians could even do next week if they were going to.
And that's another factor when you have to consider trading one of your younger pitchers like a Carrasco or a Bauer. I hate to say it, guys, but we're looking at, like you said, 2 or 3 years down the line. We're not really talking about this year or next year making these improvements. So if you get rid of one of those younger pitchers, what do you have? What does your rotation look like 2 years from now? It may not be as strong as it is now. So you can't just say, well, we've got all the other guys, we'll get rid of Carrasco. 2 years from now, who knows what kind of pitcher Corey Kluber is? Who knows what kind of pitcher either Carrasco or Cody Anderson? We just have no idea. How the pitching is today is not how it's going to be a year from now. So you may make this trade now that, that's great. We get a good hitter. We had an ample amount of pitching. We traded some of that to get a good hitter. But now by the time that good hitter is ready to go, now your pitching is not quite what it is. So this is one of the problems in baseball. You're trying to get your window and get your stars aligned to have your window of opportunity at the same time. And the Indians right now are missing that. They have playoff quality pitching most of the time and AA level hitting.
Absolutely, man. We'll see what they do next week. I mean, I'm with you. I hope that they are not short-sighted. Hey, by the way, say hi to our buddy, Nick Swisher. I guess you'll see him tomorrow night. Rubber Ducks, I believe. Last night was his first game.
So that's great.
Yeah, last night was his first game. Yeah, he did the captains, and now he started his AA rehab last night. He was 0 for 2 with a walk in his first AA game last night. So, a surprise. I don't know. Maybe he struck out. I'm not sure. It didn't say that in the stat line. But anyways, so you get to say hi. Say hi to Nick Swisher while you're
I will. Maybe I'll throw the opening pitch to him.
Throw it to him.
Hey, man,
yeah.
Go out there and play catcher for me, man. Let's do this right.
Oh, man. Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire, my man. Hey, real quick before I let you go, the other thing I wanted to talk about, Braxton Miller. A lot of talk this week. And again, Urban Meyer says, hey, I didn't say anything for sure. But I think we all kind of had heard rumors that Braxton Miller, if he did play, was going to be as some sort of wide receiver hybrid. And that's what he said anyways, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, injury-wise, he was going to be fighting up the hill for that thing not to just happen again as a fluke like it did last year. But, man, an embarrassment of riches turns into, a good opportunity for Ohio State and for Braxton Miller.
Yeah, that's
what do you think?
God, what an embarrassment of riches that is to be able to have that luxury. It was like, well, we've got you've got basically, 3 different guys that could start and lead you to a national championship. And, which one do we want to do? Well, we'll try this one. It doesn't work. We'll go this way. At the same time, though, I got to say, and I know we've talked about this before, it's all of this attention to it, and I get why people are interested. It is a fairly big story. But at the same time, this is like the Harlem Globetrotters saying, yeah, we just switched a forward to guard, and everyone like, whoa, like, no, the Ohio State, especially when you look at their schedule for this year, they're going to win every single game by 2 to 3 touchdowns minimum. This is all about getting ready for New Year's Day, for getting ready for the playoff, and then the national championship after that. It's going to be months before we really see if this was the right decision or what they're doing now, when that's going to pay off. It's just, in the back of my head, I'm kind of laughing at this, like, that Big Ten, look out, boys. This is going to be really a big thing when they start winning 58-3 against some of these guys.
Well, they're going to be doing that anyway, my friend. I mean, as we've seen, that's something else Dan and I have been talking about a lot lately, is next year there's going to be an exodus when it comes to Ohio State football and the potential. I mean, geez Louise, the number of draft picks that they could have coming off of this team next year is something. But, boy, this year, not just at quarterback, I mean, offensively, an embarrassment of riches fits it all the way around. But how about it? The damn Browns,
they
since
are
99.
what they are, and not to make this comparison in necessarily a bad way, but they are what Kentucky was in college basketball last year. Not in the Calipari greasy. There's something shady about this, but in just in the sense of
being loaded.
Oh my God, it's them against the field. Like, they are just so clearly the favorite to do this thing again. That's going to be their biggest challenge. They're not going to face any challenge in the regular season or anywhere in the Big Ten. It's going to be dealing with that expectation, because that's right. I mean, if they allow a single touchdown this year, I think people will be disappointed.
I mean, think about it. And offensively, they're going to be looking to set some Ohio State records this season offensively. Yeah. Who do you got in the horse race? Handicap it. Is it Cardell or is it JT Barrett? I think JT Barrett has the inside track because of the fact that, Cardell is still less experienced, but at the same time, anybody with that physical skill set, man. But JT Barrett, people sleep on him. He is a very, very good quarterback.
You have a feel thing that someone will be selected. It's like, okay, good for you. You're the starter. You're going to see all 3 of these guys playing.
Oh, yeah. Different
They're going to have, they're not, like I said before, they're not going to, it's not, you almost would say it's not who starts, it's who finishes. Finishing is not going to be the problem in any of these games. They're not going to need any of these guys on the field to finish these games. But I think you'll see a lot of mix-ups. You'll see a lot of guys, one guy will play a quarter. It'll feel like, an NFL. They'll just shuffle guys in and out. Okay, this series, let's try Cardell. Okay, now let's try Braxton. They'll have that luxury that they can sort of interchange, and not on a permanent basis, of course, but they'll have that. And could be a bad situation for a lot of teams. I think that they'll be able to turn that into a positive. And
since 1999, the Browns have yet to find 3 competent starting quarterbacks since 1999, and these sons of guns
3 right now.
Got 3 of them right now. What's up with that, man? I mean,
and you wonder why Cleveland, Ohio State is such a big thing in Cleveland. We wonder why. There's your answer right there.
Whoever's recruiting the quarterback, whoever's scouting the quarterbacks at Ohio State, if I was the Browns, I'd just put them on payroll, and I would just say, "Hey, dude, just tell us who to draft, man. Who would you take to Columbus? Who would you take? All right, we'll go get that guy. I mean, come on, man. But anyways, JK, my man, always a good time catching up with you, my friend. And you're up here this weekend at Rubber Ducks. Is it still Canal Park, or did they change the name of the place? Is it still?
I think it is. It is still Canal Park.
Yeah, Canal Park there, the Akron Rubber Ducks.
Actually, next Saturday we'll be at the Captain's game first. That's the Joe Boo bobblehead. So it's just a cornucopia of JK bobbleheads.
What time is your game next Saturday? Is it an evening?
Saturday. I'll check out. We can put it on the website.
My man, I'm on the other side of town at the Crushers Stadium in Avon, wrestling August 1st, right at the same time, man. You got to come see me while you're here, man.
Well, we have to arrange that.
We got to figure that out, man. I mean, I think they both start at the same baseball stadiums, 15 minutes apart from each other, 20 minutes apart from each other, on the opposite sides of town.
Meant to be, Jerry.
I guess so, man. But it would be. You've never had a chance to see me get out there and do my.
No,
thing,
I need to. I absolutely need to. Yeah. See, you do one of those mandible moves.
For sure, I don't do that, but I'll just So there you go. Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire. He'll be at Captain Stadium next weekend. He's at at the Akron Rubber Ducks at Canal Park here tomorrow night, Saturday night, for those of you guys listening on delay. Check out their Pedro Serrano bobblehead doll if you're going to the Tribe game. By the way, Bruce wanted me to ask you a question. He was curious your opinion before I let you go. What are your thoughts about and I guess they're trying it out in the minor leagues this
future that air personified. We're a little that are solely on judging. Like I can't watch figure skating, I can't watch gymnastics, I cannot watch judged sports or judged competitions. And so I don't like the judge. Now every sport has an aspect of human judging in it, and the umpire is what that is, the home plate umpire specifically in baseball. So I'm totally willing to go along with that, because I think that would, you would think that would take away a lot of one of the more arguable aspects of baseball. Is every umpire has his own strike zone, and if you've got a set and it's working correctly, then that takes that away. It is uniform across the board. So I'm very interested to see how this works. I'm a little, of course, scared by it, just like drones and robots and all of this scary stuff. But yeah, I mean, I kind of want to see how this works and see if it might be a way we can take human error as.
And for how long now that they correct the umpires after every pitch on television broadcast, the box up, and they go wrong, or they got that. I mean, I think that kind of has the fan base more with it, and maybe even where you're at, more willing to accept it, because they go, man, every time I turn around, they're going, well, look at where it was, a ball or a strike or whatever. So I made the fan base more accepting of it. It's a case where the television technology has healed, perhaps.
Sure, and even instant replay, too. I think instant replay being such a, occasionally we'll have calls over this sometimes when it's an obvious sector. The NFL, much like that back in 1986. They go to a video monitor and they're going to maybe change a call that was made on the field. That was just staggering at the time, and that took a long time to get it right. I don't know that they ever have perfected it, but at least to work it out to the point where it's now just a part of the game. So I can see this going that way. It's very stunning and very point. But, yeah, I can see 15, 20 years from now, that's just going to be how it is. And we'll look back and gosh, remember when I was a home plate umpire and he was a human being who ate ribs after the game? Wow.
Now you just look up at the scoreboard, and it just says ball or strike up on the scoreboard, and everybody just glances up. And I'm one of those guys that doesn't like to change tradition either in sports, but then the common sense side of me says, at one time when we drove up to a stoplight, there was no stoplight, there was a man with a whistle and a sign that said
true.
Stop
That's a great
and go.
Point. That's exactly what this is. Yeah,
things have to evolve. Like technology evolves, you know what I mean? And that's right there. And again, when you spend 20 years showing the fans on TV that the umpires were where they were right and where they were wrong, the next step is, well, then why don't we just let that thing do all of it then, since they don't get them wrong, So
that's true.
There we go.
Yeah, that's a good
JK, how's the book tour going, by the way? You're out here hustling up all these appearances, still plugging along, Major League?
Still schlepping around and shilling the book. Yeah, in fact, the last week or two, I've done quite a bit. Milwaukee was quite excited. Milwaukee was very, very excited leading up to their to the Major League night the other night. So I was doing quite a bit of Milwaukee media, and that was fun because they asked some different questions, were interested in some different things than Cleveland people were. So that was fun to do. But yeah, I mean, the response has just been great, and everyone seems to be really enjoying it. So yeah, so it's been a lot of fun and still going. I mean, that's the fun part. Is there's still the Rubber Ducks tomorrow, obviously the Captains next week. So a lot of fun things on the horizon.
All right, and I'm going to catch up with you while you're here. JK, thank you so much for catching up with us, and you and I got to talk next week and see what we can work out. I actually am not in the studio next Friday. I'm in Chicago next Friday, so I'll be out of town Friday, Saturdays. Friday I'm in Chicago, Saturday I'm back here in Cleveland, then Sunday I'm in Dayton. So we won't catch up on the air for 2 weeks, but you and I have got to talk off the air next week and see if we can't get together next weekend.
Fair enough. We'll go to executive committee, and we'll let the listeners know what we decided.
Sounds good. Jonathan Knight, if I don't see you in person, have good luck next weekend at the Captain's game, this weekend at the Rubber Ducks game, and you and I will talk again on air 2 weeks from today.
Yes, we will. Sounds good, my friend.
Hey, we'll be talking football, because it will be that time. We will be talking some football.
You're right.
Oh, man.
Now
I'm going to get a text that says, I can't do it. Can't do the show today. Sorry, man.
I don't want to talk football.
He's going to send it to me now and say, I can't do the show in 2 weeks. Sorry, man. Something came up.
I'm busy that day.
Are you talking football? I'm busy that day, too. JK,
I'm busy that day. The Browns still in existence? Yeah, I'm busy that day.
JK, I love it, man. You have a great time, and you and I will catch up soon.
You bet, buddy. Take care.
You got it. That's my man, the sports writer extraordinaire, Jonathan Knight. Always a great time. Always honored to have him as a guest here on the Sports Fix. Make sure you guys get out to Canal Park tomorrow night if you're in the Akron, Northeast Ohio area. Go check it out. Get you a Pedro Serrano bobblehead doll while you're there, and get you a copy of the Major League Just a Bit Inside Story about the making of one of baseball's best comedies of all time. We're going to take a break. Phones are back open, 216-539-7535. We're going to come back and put a pretty little wrapping bow on this thing, talk about some of the things we blew off at the beginning of the show when JK called in early and changed the schedule. We'll pick it up, talk a little bit about the Cavs moves this week, prep you for the Gladiators one more time, talk about my wrestling appearances this weekend. I'll let you guys know where you can see me and more. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, final segment of The Fix and your calls coming up next, 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. We'll be right back, wrapping up The Fix after this.
And now, a very special announcement from the Sports Fix.
Black bears weigh between 200 and 500 pounds. Brown bears weigh between 300 and over 1,000 pounds. Black bears run away from you. Brown bears run at you. When attacked by a bear, simply lie still on the ground and cover your face and head with your hands. When the bear is finished batting you around and mauling you, contact the U.S. Forest Service.
And that was a message from the Sports Fix.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
It's the Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
American Revolution Wrestling and the Lake Erie Crushers present Brawl at the Ballpark. Saturday, August 1st at All Pro Freight Stadium in Avon. Come enjoy a live professional wrestling event featuring Hall of Famers Bret the Hitman Hart, Lita, The Franchise, Shane Douglas, Vader, Rhino, the FBI, and more. VIP tickets include a special early access meet and greet with the stars. Brawl at the Ballpark, August 1st at All Pro Freight Stadium. For more info or to purchase tickets, visit amrevwrestling.com now.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Yeah. Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's fantasy sports superstore, FantasyJocks.com. No football? No problem at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. From their awesome Wing Mondays to every single Cavaliers and Buckeye Hoops games in full HD.
Kyrie supposed to D, goes inside, teardrops it home right down Euclid.
That's way up in there for two.
The excitement never stops. Every day of the week brings a different set of food and amazing drink specials.
And now,
fans, Harry Buffalo North Olmsted is the home for every UFC pay-per-view live on the big screens.
Let's get it all!
Trademark the Bison Burger.
They sure are good.
Nobody does a combination of healthy and delicious.
Hey there, eat up, y'all. You's as good church-going folk. Y'all deserve a little treat.
What are you waiting for? Get to Harry Buffalo, just outside Great Northern Mall today. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Hey Cleveland, this is Mo Williams, and you're listening to Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix. They're not looking at you, they're looking at me, and I clicked the button and got it rolling. Welcome in, you guys. Final segment of the show. J-Rocc back with you. Thanks again to Jonathan Knight, sportswriter extraordinaire, for being with us earlier today. Before we even get into anything else, let's go ahead and set the stage for next week, let you guys know what the schedule is looking like. As I mentioned, first off, to begin with, a shortened schedule next week. We'll be here live on Monday and Wednesday next week, and that will be the end. It will be a short week next week because of wrestling commitments. I will be in Chicago next Friday, as I mentioned, and that's an early morning head out there. So we're going to do Monday and Wednesday next week, and we're going to move some things around and try to fit in what we can. Mike Brandenberry is going to join us from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com on Monday. Mike's going to be here out of his usual spot to talk about last-minute trade deadline stuff for the Indians, some of the stuff that we were talking about today with Jonathan Knight and that we've been talking about leading up to trade deadline time for baseball. Of course, Major League Baseball's trade deadline, July 31st, next Friday. We'll talk to Mike Brandenberry on Monday and Dan Wismar, get his thoughts on the Buckeyes and Braxton Miller as the Bucks head into camp there. I'm getting ready to go to the phones, you guys. Sit tight there. But looking forward to Monday. Double shot of goodness there with Mike Brandenberry and Dan Wismar in the house. We'll talk about the weekend that was. And, of course, speaking of that, I hope to see you on this weekend that is, before it is the weekend that was. Right now, it's the weekend that will be. Tomorrow night, once again, I'll be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at the Altar Bar, which is right in downtown Pittsburgh, literally right in the district area, downtown Pittsburgh. I guess that's where the action is. That's where I'll be tomorrow night, Saturday, July 25th. Come check me out if you can for American Revolution Wrestling. And I will be in Erie, Pennsylvania, a special beachfront show at Chick-fil-A's on the Bay in Erie, Pennsylvania for Pro Wrestling Rampage. So if you guys get a chance, come on out, pick up your brand new J-Rocc King of Cleveland t-shirt, baby, or just come on out and say hi and enjoy some action. And again, next week, I'll be reminding you, but Friday, Chicago, all of my Chi-Town peeps, it's my first time out there. All of you Sports Fix listeners in Chi-Town, come on down, baby, and let's get down at the Odeum. I'll be taking on Shane Douglas next Saturday. Avon, you've heard the commercials during the show. All Pro Freight Stadium, a combo show with the Lake Erie Crushers, a one-night, one-time only reunion. Myself and my former tag team partner, the baddest man in the world, Raymond Rowe from Ring of Honor Wrestling. We will be reforming the Cleveland Mafia for one night only. And Sunday, I'll be in Dayton at the legendary Hara Arena down there. Looking forward to all 3 days of that next weekend. So we got the next in the next 11 days, you've got 5 opportunities in 5 completely different markets to come on out, hang out, and meet me and hang out and do the thing. Whether you come to Pittsburgh, Erie, Chicago, Cleveland, or Dayton, I look forward to meeting you guys every chance we get. All right, I'm going to go to the phones here in just a moment as we get rolling back on with the show. The Cleveland Gladiators are off this weekend, by the way. Last weekend, again, the slide continues for the Gladiators as they fell 65-58 at home to the Orlando Predators. The Gladiators have really free-fallen out of, they were controlling their own destiny heading into the final stretch of the season here earlier this year, but now the Gladiators finding themselves in some trouble. They sit at 7-9 right now, so as things sit, the Gladiators would still make the playoffs. However, just a one-game cushion for them. So the Gladiators definitely need to win these final couple of games. They're off this week, and then next week they've got 2 home games coming up back-to-back, August 1st, August 8th. The Spokane Shock, and then the division-leading Philadelphia Soul coming in, and that's no easy feat there. Philadelphia 13-3, although they dropped one over the weekend here. Spokane, by the way, coming in also as struggling this season. They may find themselves in playoff position. The AFL, hey man, I don't qualify them. I just read you the records. But anyways, if they want to return to the playoffs as they did last year, making that mythical Arena Bowl run, the Rattlers at the end of the season. We'll talk some more about the Glads here next week as they prep all week about here. Presented the hours before the game. Official tomorrow evening, Saturday evening, outside the gate pitch. There's going to be a series of speakers there as they unveil this. The Dolans will be there. A couple of players, Mudcat Grant, Larry Doby Jr. will also be there, as well as many other people involved with the RBI program, which has Larry Doby attached to it, and so many others. Sports Time Ohio, if you don't get out, they're going to put it on the pregame show as well, and everybody the first 12,000 in attendance will get the replica Doby statue as well when you get that. It's also fireworks night too, so it should be a very good crowd for the Indians there all weekend long. Hopefully yesterday's debacle offensively didn't run the fans off for the weekend. Corey Kluber will be pitching tonight for the Indians, and you know what? As tough as his record looks, if you look beyond that, it's amazing. He's second in the American League in strikeouts, second in innings pitched, fourth in strikeouts per 9 innings, third in wins above replacement, even with his record looking as it is, and his ERA of balls put into play is fourth in the American League when you look at the balls that were actually put into play. I'll tell you what, Corey Kluber is having a heck of a season under everybody's nose there because of the lack of run support. He's got Quintana on the mound, the lefty, Jose Quintana, going to take the mound for the White Sox. As I said, 7:10 tonight, Dollar Dog Night, fireworks, all of that, the $2 pre-gaming. Tomorrow for Larry Doby Day, Carlos Carrasco and Chris Sale. What a pitching matchup that should be. Here comes Chicago firing those lefties all 3 days this weekend at the Indians. Danny Salazar, Sunday. Danny Salazar and Carlos Rodon finish up the weekend series for the Indians. Then they stay home and they stay in the division for the Kansas City Royals beginning next week. We'll preview that with Dan, and hopefully we're looking coming out of a good season here, or a good series here for the Indians. They need to warm up heading into that one because Kansas City's not joking around at all, and they'll be looking to put some distance between themselves and the Indians. I'm going to go to the phones, and I'm going to let you get the final word on the show for the week. So, caller, you're up on the Sports Fix. Take us home.
Yeah, hello, J-Rocc.
Hello,
I'm used to being the leadoff
Bruce. Hitter. What's up, my man?
I'm used to being the first guy in the lineup, and batting last, I feel like Michael Bourne.
You would have been, man, but yeah, exactly. We had to flip the lineup around, man. How you doing, my friend? What's happening?
I've had a busy week just like you, J-Rocc.
Oh, yeah.
I did an interview with the Plain Dealer, and things kind of have been kind of just busy ever since.
Yeah, you were telling me a bit about that off the air, and yeah, you were recognized by the Plain Dealer. I've told you guys that listen to the show for a long time about my man Bruce Wood here and his extensive memorabilia collection, and of course you guys also know he's a big Indians trivia guy, and Bruce got a little bit of recognition for that here this week. The offices of the Indians, pretty cool stuff there, and much deserved. You really do have an excellent Indians memorabilia collection, as well as a top flight memory of Indians trivia.
Well, thank you. But the reason why I called is the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Now I know Carrasco's name's been kicked around, but I haven't been a big Bauer fan from the beginning, and we have pieces that can be moved, but what can we get in return is the big question. I read that story by Mike Brandenberry.
Yeah.
And there's nobody in there that really jumps off the page at you.
Right. That's the kind of what Jake Hay and I were throwing out there too. I mean, even if the Indians look at each other today and they say we're going to go for it. I don't know why they would do that, but they're going to say we're going to go for it next week. We're going to make a trade. Now, who? You tell me. Finish the next part of it. Now, the Indians have said we'll go make a trade. Now, let's find out who and how much of a difference is that really going to make?
Well, I wanted to make a trade with Detroit, which I doubt they would do. But
yeah, I doubt that too.
Detroit is talking about getting rid of Price and the outfielder that I've wanted from the start. So on what everybody has, I mean, there's really nothing out there that I would venture my future on.
No, there's some stuff that can help you over the next couple of seasons that you could do, but that's not going to make anybody happy next Friday, and that's not what we're talking about here. I do expect Brandon Moss to somebody who's, hey, listen, if people could try Liz and Josh Willingham at every trade deadline and there would be teams lined up to go, hey, he's got power in his bat. How many years in a row did sports talk people tell you Indians fans out there, well, Willingham's got some pop in his bat. He's only hitting .215, but he does have 20 home runs, and that could help a team in the stretch run or whatever. Some teams can talk themselves into Brandon Moss if the Indians would be so willing to make that trade, and I could see him. I see David Murphy, and the problem with David Murphy is that he's been so damn productive that what happens to your lineup if you do trade him out, because you lose one of the few pieces that's actually contributing to your season. Very difficult for fans and players. The other one would be Lonnie Chisenhall. I have very high expectations that he may be packaged as part of something, not necessarily. But I don't think you're getting anything in any of those players for this year. I think you're going to bring in a group of prospects that could perhaps help you as soon as next season, perhaps. But that'll be the best you can get in that scenario. But I do expect them to move a couple of those guys out for sure. And, anything other than that, though, I don't. And here's the other reason why I wouldn't if I was the Indians, because of what I mentioned earlier, is part of it feels like you're thinking about trading a piece of your core because it's a move needed out of financial necessity for the mistakes that you've made, and that is not the same as it just being a good baseball move. If it was a move to make, then make it. But if you're going to readjust your core because we have to deal with this dead money on the salary, then that's something that I've got a problem with. And I understand that ownership, you can say, oh, well, they're not here to lose money all they want. They made those bad deals, but the entire franchise and its fan base should not have to suffer for multiple seasons because of it.
Oh, I totally agree. And the deal, I don't know about you, but Moss has not impressed me at all.
He's got
way
pop in his
too
bat,
inconsistent.
but he's what's his name from a couple of years ago. The guy we had that was just like Mark Reynolds. He's just Mark Reynolds.
Yeah, Mark Reynolds.
All over again.
He either hit or
strike out
miss.
a million times. Yeah, strike out a million times. It's either a strikeout or a home run. I mean,
right.
He'll hit a home run for every 4 strikeouts. That's pretty much 5 strikeouts. That's about the ratio or whatever. And add in a fly ball there from time to time and the occasional double, and you get a 200 hitter with 20 home runs.
Right. And as far as Murphy goes, Murphy's hitting the ball better than he's probably ever hit it. But
a little, it can get worse.
Field, he looks shaky out there.
I mean, the thing is, though, and with him, it may be smart to move him because of the whole selling high, because he's, like you said, probably at one of the better offensive productions he's going to do. Slightly better return for him, especially if it's somebody that doesn't have a problem with that option next year or whatever. But I've never been an anti-Murphy guy. I know where Mike argues with his salary, and I think that if we didn't have to talk about the $30 million at the Albatross there that we're talking about, then that $7 million becomes a lot less of a big deal. But either way, I'm just thinking of this as a freaking fan. I'm not even getting into this in front of the media perspective. What is this lineup going to look like if you get rid of one or two pieces that are hitting, man? I mean, at that point.
Oh, exactly.
Right.
The one thing I do have to say, though, is, kudos to the front office and the Aviles deal. I mean, people have called about Mike right and left, and they said, we have no interest in getting rid of him at all. So.
You can't.
No,
I'll tell you what, I'm not just talking about the Indians. To me, any major league team with a player in the situation of Mike Aviles, you don't even consider trading him. And it's not because, Mike Aviles doesn't have a big trade market. It's not like anybody's going, hey, we're going to knock your doors down with this offer that you just have to listen to. But no player dealing with what he's dealing with right now should in any way have to deal with up and moving his situation at that point in time. And absolutely, hats off to the Indians. I think it's a no-brainer that no team would consider trading him, but I'm sure that there may be some jackhat somewhere that would consider it. But to me, that's the human being thing to do. You don't even consider it. You go, hey, that's the last thing we're trying to do is make this guy's life any tougher.
Well, I talk to a lot of people in the Indians media.
Oh, yeah.
And,
yeah.
And they've always been a class act. And this just kind of like was the icing on the cake yesterday with, don't
Absolutely.
even ask us about it because it ain't going to happen.
Absolutely.
And
I agree with that.
That was... that was perfect the way that they kind of put it out there and saying, look, you can call all you want, but that name is not coming up in any conversation.
Yeah.
And that just, kind of makes you feel good as a fan that the organization takes that kind of, not to mention that everybody shaved their heads, so it's kind of like, I got to wait for the hair to grow back now. But, I just thought it was really a class thing to do.
I agree with that for sure. No problem there, man.
And as far as, trading, the Indians don't have any problem spending money. They just never spend it in the right spot.
Well,
they get the
I won't
guy
go that
either
far.
a year behind time or.
Bruce, I'm not going to go that far. I won't say that they're cheap like the backside of the reputation. But I won't say that they have no problem spending money either. Because here's the thing, and I don't want to go down this road, but everybody points to Swisher and Bourne, and I will repeat the fact that they had to spend that money because it was a batch of money that they received that you could say they didn't have to spend it, but they had no choice at that point in time, and simply they were reinvesting that $40 million or whatever that they brought in at the time for the TV deal there. So yes,
I totally agree with that part.
You know
of
what
it.
I mean?
The part that I don't agree with is that is that they just don't seem to. I don't know if it's the front office or scouting or whatever it is, but they always seem to get the guy 1 year past his prime.
Absolutely. Because that's what happens when you play Moneyball. When you play Moneyball, you only go after two types of players. Incredibly cheap young players and veterans who either coming back from an injury or that you believe has one more strong year left in them. So when you get them right, you get 2013, and that's what happened. Is you get one last good month out of Jason Giambi, and you get a good run from your veterans to support a young team, and that's what that team was basically that, with the exception of the money that they spent on the guys we're already talking about over and over again. So when you get them wrong, you get what the Indians have right now, and that is Moneyball. That's what it is. It's young and old. There is no in between. And that's why Mike Brandenburg always says David Murphy doesn't fit, because there is no room for a $7 million guy when you're playing Moneyball. It's either the minimum that you're getting because you haven't reached free agency yet, or it's $15 million a year for Nick Swisher. There is no in between and that bothers me. Now, see, that is what bothers me. It's not that the Indians have a $90 million payroll and they say we have to stay within our budget. It's the fact that they're now the third year into the Swisher and Bourne problem. Now, I can understand in year 1 and year 2 going, hey, man, we paid this money. We're going to get this. At this point, my problem comes in saying, well, we just have to play with a $60 million payroll for the next 2 years because we've got these guys. And the fact that that is okay is what bothers me about the Indians, because I'm not saying that you know what I mean? Because I'm not saying that you give back the whole. You go, okay, we're going to spend $120 million to make up for that, but you are not being fair to your roster. You're not being fair to your manager, and you're not being fair to your fans because you are playing with a record low payroll when you realize that Swisher and Bourne eat up $30 million of that thing, and that is what bothers me. Not that they made the bad deal, and even living with it for the first 2 years. But now at this point, it feels like you're thumbing your nose at the fans by saying, hey, listen, we just have to eat this salary, so you're just going to have to eat it too, and we're just going to have to wait 2 years to get these guys off the books. And that's not acceptable to me because you made a mistake.
Well,
deal with it.
The thing that bothers me is that they pay this, $15 million a year, hoping for one good year, but they sign them for 3.
Well, they had to, because these agents hold the Indians up and they say, hey, if you want Nick Swisher, then we want a 3-year contract with an option for a 4th year, and and you know what? That's where sometimes when you deal with these guys who have relationships with agents in the front office, that bothers me sometimes too, because you see these guys, like you said, get that extra year kicked in that no other team would have given them, and it leads you to this situation as well.
Well, shouldn't that be a red flag? I mean, like, if these guys are only giving you 2 years and we're going to give you 3,
Listen,
the Indians should be saying, look, if these people are only giving them 2 years, why can't we just give them 2 years?
I'm telling you, man, I agreed that the Indians needed to spend that money, but I never, ever jumped up and down. I can show you the day. I was on air with Jonathan Knight the night that they announced Nick Swisher, and I was like, whoa, what's the big deal about this? You just signed a guy who had his last good season last year and barely had a good season. This guy is toast, man, and he was. He was toast.
I was
from the
looking
day
at
the Indians
260, 20 homers a year,
and that was,
80
but
RBIs.
that was, you know what? His last year before Cleveland was Jason Giambi's 2013. That was his last good year. He cashed in, and he turned that season into $70 million.
Right, exactly. And the Indians, like I said, gave him the 3-year deal, where most teams would only give the 2.
Now, you know what? I'm curious about this. I know Mike and I were talking last week, and it'd be silly to think that Nick Swisher would give money back. But you have to think that they've reached the point, the Indians, where if I were them this offseason, I would claim disability on Nick Swisher, and I would try to get insurance to pay off the rest of his contract, because he's now at the point where he's had more time on the disabled list, I think, than he's had on the active list since he's been here in Cleveland. And that would be a huge way for the insurer, but not have it come out of their salary pool. You know what I mean? There's a reason that they get insurance to pay for them. That because he's going to be late. I shake Nick Swisher's hand and I say, I know you're not going to like this, but we're cashing you in as a disability case, and we're going to get insurance to pay the rest of this. And if you disagree, then you can go fight the insurance company. But I mean, that isn't. Am I wrong? And I'm going to ask people next week. Am I wrong? Option for the Indians, right?
That seems like the only thing we can do at this point. I mean, he hasn't done anything in 2 years to help the team.
I mean, the problem
so why not
is
cash
that
his insurance?
You get it. Your
I
insurance
remember
premiums
the night
will
we
go
got
up.
Michael Bourne, and people were saying, it's nice to see somebody wear uniform number 24 that doesn't say Sizemore on the back. I wonder.
Tell you what, he contributed about as much as if Grady had been here.
Right. I mean, Grady's done probably just as much as Michael has. Since,
yeah, and neither one of them's done anything. Anyways,
right.
We'll see what they do. So funny that it doesn't matter who it is that we're talking to. It all comes back to two names, and that continues to be such a holdup for the Indians. And what'll make it worse will be if things start to collapse internally this offseason, because that's what I worry about. When you start monkeying around, does the manager get affected? If the manager gets affected, does the front office get affected? I mean, do all of these dominoes fall because you refuse to cut bait on that portion of the salary? Because that is the point that I can't get past, is that the Indians are a 500 team with the best pitching in the American League and a $60 million payroll. That $30 million would easily have the Indians offensively right where they need to be, and they would be as good as the place born and swish, hitting the league average at their respective positions.
That is true. Now think back, though. Didn't we go through this like in the 80s we had pitching one year and the next year we had hitting, and we never had either one of them at the same time?
That's management saying your payroll is $30 million. You cannot spend a penny over it. And so they would go, well, we've got good pitching. We need to get hitting, but we can't spend any more money. So the only way to get it is to trade what we have. And that's exactly what you're going to get into. Because like JK brought up earlier, if you trade out Carrasco or Bauer or one of those guys now, 2 years from now, you may not have this. Hey, all it takes is one trade and one major injury, and next thing you know, you have no pitching rotation like you did now, and you've got the wrong players locked up in a core, and now you're stuck in that middle ground where you've got a really, I don't want to say really expensive, but a moderately expensive, really horrible team, because you're now stuck in the middle of between a rebuild and a teardown, because you got some of these guys locked up to their core, whatever you want to call it, for the next four years or so. But that changes the whole equation. If 2 years from now you have, let's just say, knock on wood, this doesn't happen. Let's say you trade one of those guys, Bauer and Carrasco, and the other one gets a significant injury. Next thing you know, you got Corey Kluber, you got Anderson, and you got a bunch of question marks after that. And all of a sudden, you don't have the rotation of the future anymore.
That's true. I mean, look at our fifth starter this year. We've had, 4 or 5 different number 5 starters.
Absolutely.
We do not have the pitching in our minor league system to cover in case something happens to one of our regular starters.
Nope.
So, you can't trade pitching, and we can't live with the hitting we have now. So what do? You look at maybe a Brantley? I hate to say it, but Brantley would bring you.
To me, the Indians have a group of hands-off guys, and you just mentioned one of them. No, I don't care what you offer me. You're not getting Michael Brantley. You're not getting Yan Gomes. You're not getting Jason Kipnis. I don't care. And I said that last year. And you're not getting
people one season can just kind of change everybody's opinion?
I will no. It changes fans that roll with the wind and change their mind from one day to the other. But I am proud of the fact that while Jason Kipnis was struggling, I said, no way you give up on this guy, because he's injured. There's reasons that he's not contributing like he should, and I just believed in that kid, and that is the whole and only reason why I hold out on trading Carlos Santana, because part of me sees just enough of the good Carlos Santana to say, but man, if he shows up next year and hits the ground running like Kipnis did 3 months from now, people are going, boy, am I glad I didn't trade Carlos Santana. And maybe they're totally different stories. Maybe Santana does not ever bounce back to that level. But that's why I hold out hope. But I wouldn't put Santana on my untradeable list, even though to me, I like him. I understand why he's probably one of your more tradable assets. But Brantley, Kipnis, absolutely not going anywhere. Yan Gomes, I would not trade at all. Obviously, the majority of my young guys in the farm system, Lindor, Urshela, those guys aren't going anywhere. and my pitchers aren't going anywhere. The only one that I may even consider trading would be Trevor Bauer, and I would hate to do it because his stuff may be the best of all of them, but there are, although he's been a model guy this year, so you got to give him credit and say that he has done what the Indians have asked him to do as far as being coachable and all that stuff. But, I would not, to be honest, I wouldn't move any of that pitching. And that's why, as sad as it is to sound, for the Indians to improve for the next 2 seasons, to me, the only way to do it is to expand your payroll a little bit here, wipe Bourne and Swisher out of the equation, pay them whatever you got to do, right? Eat it, and bring in offensive pieces in free agency until either Zimmer or Ramsey or any of these potential outfield prospects, Aguilar, all these different guys you got that are coming up. More than likely, 1 or 2 or 3 of them will be contribute positions in the next few years. Don't make a big commitment to an outfielder. You don't trade for somebody that's got 3 or 4 years to deal with, because you're potentially going to have your center fielder of the future in 2 years or less, right? So
right.
So
now,
to me,
that leads me to my next question. Do you move Kipnis to right field and put Ramirez at second base?
I wouldn't put Ramirez at second, but I would not be against putting Jason Kipnis in the outfield at some point, because I think that puts a good bat at a premium position. But then again, he's a premium offensive second baseman, even though he's just average defensively. So either way, it's a position where you need power, whether it's a corner outfield spot. But that's almost just moving a guy. To me, I would do that if I could get a second base. Like if I could get a better second baseman than I could a corner outfielder, then I consider making that move. But if I get a decent corner outfielder, then I just leave Kipnis where he is. But if maybe the best free agent that I could get offensively that fit my payroll was a second baseman, then I would consider flipping Kipnis to the outfield. But I wouldn't do it just because if you do it for that, then you're just moving the power from second to the outfield, and now you don't have power. Now you've got a weak hitting second baseman,
Okay, I agree with that. Now, has Aguilar done everything he can in AAA?
Oh, I don't think so. As a matter of fact, isn't he struggling right now? I don't have the minor league stats in front of me. I just got the latest ones this morning. But he's been struggling.
I think he leads the team in home runs.
He's been, again, he's got that. And that's a guy, him and his buddy Carlos Moncrief that I kind of, for the last 2 years, have been hoping to see come up and help out with the Indians. I may be nuts here, but I still think I'd like to get a good look at the end of the season. We'll probably see it. I want to see some James Ramsey. The Cardinals do a good job in their farm system, and I want to see this kid, man, because I think I said it when we got him. I think the Indians may have got a bit of a good trade there that came under the radar when they got Ramsey from Masterson.
Okay, now, with that being said, Zimmer's name keeps popping up in the trades at the trade deadline. A lot of people are asking about him.
Well, I mean, now we're getting into a different group of scenarios that we can start talking about on Monday. Now you're talking about trading out of the farm system, and
right.
Now, see,
that seems to be one of the top prospects that teams are looking for.
But that doesn't seem to work for the Indians because, you would be trading your outfielder, potentially your center fielder of the future in the next 18 to 24 months. The only reason you trade prospects is to bring in somebody to help you now. You don't trade prospects for other prospects. You don't go, hey, I'll send you my center fielder and you send me your right fielder. So if they were trading Zimmer, they would have to be bringing in a big ticket guy. I would say let's do it, not necessarily trading Zimmer, but bringing in a guy. But I don't see the Indians doing that. So that doesn't seem to make sense to me unless it was just part of a blockbuster, which I don't think the Indians make. Bruce, I'm up against it, my man. We can talk about this on Monday.
You're J-Rocc.
Have some fun this weekend at the Doby game, my friend.
I sure will. Thank you.
You got it. That's my man, Bruce. And again, it was cool to hear him talked well about by the Plain Dealer people. His buddies over there at the Plain Dealer. But Bruce is the man when it comes to Indians knowledge and Indians memorabilia. Guys, we're going to get ready to wrap it up. We'll get more into this next week. Monday, Mike Brandenberry joins us from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. We'll have Dan Wismar from Everybody Hates Cleveland here. Cavs, let's see what else they may put together here in the next few weeks. The pieces coming together. James Jones, 1-year contract to come back for the Cavs. I liked what JJ gave him off the bench, especially down when they started giving him some of Marion's minutes in the second half of the season. Also this week, we didn't even talk about it, they grabbed Jefferson. Richard Jefferson comes over, and he's another one of those graybeards looking to come win a ring here. But I think that he dims. You've got bring back J.R. Smith. You've got a much more powerful bench than you had last year. Let's leave it at that. And also made a trade quickly here. They moved Rakeem Christmas, who they just drafted. It was a move of necessity. I hear they liked him from inside the Cavaliers. They really liked him. They took him in the second. Traded him to the Lakers, 2019 second round. To move days, and they're called a trade exception, which means they can then make a trade next year for $10 million more in one direction than the other, because in the NBA your salaries have to match within so much percentage. This would allow the Cavaliers to be in the negative $10 million in a trade and take on extra salary that they don't send out, because theoretically they don't have any players to send out. They could then trade nothing and their trade exception for a player, basically allowing them to take on a player at the trade deadline next year who makes less than $10.5 million. So now they're hoping that with that second round pick that they just grabbed, they can throw that out there at a team. And the two teams that I'm hearing are really the only possibilities for the Cavaliers would be the Philadelphia 76ers or the Portland Trailblazers, because they're really the only teams out there that can take Haywood's contract for the Cavs. So if they've now got that second round draft pick, they've got the opportunity to offer that and get somebody to take Haywood's deal. So we'll talk more about this here next week as well. Guys, I'm getting ready to call it a day. I'd love to see you this weekend. Pittsburgh, Altar Bar, Saturday night. Check it out. Sunday, Erie, Pennsylvania. Chick-fil-A's at the Bay. American Revolution Wrestling on Saturday. Pro Wrestling Rampage on Sunday. Back in the studio on Monday. Live. Same bat time. Same bat channel. Noon right here on the Sports Fix across the Sports Fix Radio Network. You guys, we will be back. We will be live on Monday, and I cannot wait to see you. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the Indians. Enjoy, the Rubber Ducks game. Jonathan Knight throwing out the first pitch there. Enjoy some wrestling shows if you come out and see me, and I will be back here. And we'll join you with Mike Brandenberry and Dan Wismar live on Monday right here on the Sports Fix. We love you, Cleveland and beyond. We'll see you Monday, baby, right here on the Fix.
Street, we hustle.